Hi, good morning, my students. My name is Tracy. In today's class, we're learning newspaper article structures. So before we get started, I have several questions for you guys. Are you a frequent newspaper reader? I know nowadays more and more people are indulging themselves in social media platforms like WeChat, Instagram, and Facebook or Twitter. But I'm just very curious about your reading habits. Maybe you guys can share with the class as to your frequency of reading newspaper, be it the paper one or the e-one, the online version. Did you know the newspaper use different sections and headings in order to better organize their content? Do you know why? Also, why do you think that it is very crucial for newspapers to use different sections and headings instead of just putting everything together? Also, what role do images and captions play in a newspaper article? What do you think? Why do we have so many colorful and fabulous images and captions for newspaper articles? Have you ever come across or encountered a misleading or sensationalized headline in a newspaper? You can share with your peers in a class. And how can we critically evaluate the credibility and accuracy of newspaper articles? You know, for some of the newspaper publisher, in order to increase their clickbait or in order to attract the reader's attention, they might deliberately name the newspaper in a very exaggerated way in order to like lead more readers to read on more. But is that even because but is that ethical? Let's just think about that. Last but not least, if you were the editor of a newspaper, what stories would you prioritize for the front page? Because, you know, we have different pages inside a newspaper and different sections. And let's say if you are the editor of the newspaper, how would you organize the content, or what content would you put in which page? And now you guys have 10 minutes to share with your peers about your opinions and your thoughts on these questions. And later on, I would invite each of you to share about your thoughts. Okay, now let's look at the flow of our lecture today. First of all, we'll take a look at the learning outcomes of our class, and then we'll dive into the structural features of the newspaper articles, and also we'll learn about how to write a decent or appropriate summary for a newspaper article. Last but not least, we'll have the group discussion, and we'll end our lesson with the Kahoot game. Okay, so before we get started, I would like to give all of you a diagnostic assessment in order to see your knowledge or in order to gain a better understanding as to what content or what skills would you like to learn more about in our lecture. So I've prepared a KWL chart. Basically, we have three sections or three questions. As you can see here, you can write down your answers as to how do you know about the topic of our newspaper article structures, and what do you want to know, and what did you learn in our lessons today. And so for this assessment, I'm going to give you guys 5 minutes to complete the first sections. And then at the end of our class, we're going to talk about, or we're going to conclude what we learned today. So first things first, the learning outcomes. I've always think about these sections as something very crucial and important because it can better help us navigate your orientation or your target of learning this lecture. And so it's basically the knowledge expected of you guys after the lesson today. Basically, by the end of this lesson, you will be able to identify different parts of a newspaper article, summarize newspaper article, read newspaper articles with great speed and efficiency to skim through, and so to ask a discussion question based on a newspaper article, as well as participate in your group discussion about certain newspaper articles. Last but not least, before we get started, I have this very inspirational quote for newspaper articles. As defined by author, he said that newspapers cannot be defined by the second word, paper. They've got to be defined by the first word, news. What do you think about this quote? As for me, the first time I looked at this quote, I read this quote online, I was totally inspired by this. I'm not sure if you can get my point, but then I would like to give you guys 2 minutes to discuss with your peers as to what do you understand about this quote, or what you can learn, what can you learn from this quote? So why does author said so why does others say newspapers cannot be defined by the second word paper? They've got to be defined by the first word news. Because we know for newspapers, for this word, you have news and then paper, right? So basically it's a word consisted of 2 words, news and paper. But then have you ever considered which word is even more important, or which word outweighs the other one as to what extent and why? Okay, so now you're free to share with you guys. Okay, so now you're free to share with the class. Now let's get down to business. The structural features of newspaper articles. We are going to identify different parts of newspaper articles. So normally a newspaper article should look like, well, they have the pyramid structure or the inverted pyramid structure or the cylinder. Actually, it's a multiple choice question. You have to choose one among the 3 answers. Is it a pyramid? Is it an inverted pyramid? Or is it just a cylinder structure? Give it a try. And also please elaborate on your answers as to why you choose your answers. So here's the answer. Basically, a newspaper article follows the structure of an inverted pyramid. Why so? Let's take a look. So we have headline, bedline, and dateline, which is also basically what pops into your eye when you encounter a newspaper article. We also have the lead, the body, and then the tail. So in this lesson, we basically are going to talk about each of these one by one. First, the headline. What is a headline? It is very simple. Basically, it's something short and snappy, and it's basically just the title of your newspaper article. So its function is to grab the reader's attention and also to summarize the main points of your article. What are some of the features of the headlines? So normally they're short and snappy, which means that they can sometimes miss out some non-essential words such as the, or to. By that, we mean that you don't have to give your title a very complete sentence. It can just be some phrases or just a word to conclude your article and also to grab your reader's attention. It needs to be very eye-catching. Why so? Because I'm sure that when all of you guys read a newspaper article, the first thing that comes into your eyes is the headline, because it's the biggest one. And also from the headline, you basically can understand what this whole article is about. So it needs to be eye-catching in order to attract the reader's attention. So in order to be attractive or eye-catching, it can be achieved by using humor, alliteration, or just a pun. So what is a pun? I've got a very So what exactly is a pun? It's basically a humorous way to express something hilarious. For example, I have a pun for you guys. Did you hear about the man who lost his left side? He's all right now. Did you get a pun? It's actually to play with your word in order to create this humorous vibe. And so the third features for the headline is basically write in the past tense, even if the event has already happened, because it can simplify the language choices and also to involve the readers more, to make you feel like you're in the scene, you're on the spot. Last but not least, the third person. Normally, the headline should be written in the third person in a non-autobiographical way. So this is a very good example. Attention TTC passengers, the delay you're experiencing on the subway is longer than ever. Here's why. So in this headline, so this headline actually attracts my attention because it says, so this headline basically attracted my attention because it says, here's why. I'm very curious about what is the reason, like, what is it? I'm very curious about what are the reasons as to why we're experiencing on the subway, the delay. So in order to find out the causes, I have to keep on reading this article. And so actually this headline is very successful in retaining my attention because it makes me want to read more. And also this headline says the delay you are experiencing. It actually involves me as a person. It's like a conversation with me. It actually, it's like, it tells me as to why you are experiencing this subway delay instead of saying why they are experiencing this delay. It's quite different. Like for the, like for the subject use, it matters a lot. It's like a dialogue between me and this headline. And now we have the byline. So what is, and now we have the byline. So what is a byline? It's basically the author's information. It's quite simple. Basically, we use the by plus author's full name. And sometimes we also add specialties such as sports reporter, education reporter, or food writer. Last but not least, sometimes we also add details as to how the reader can find more of the author's opinion or word online. As you can see in this example, the by Joshua Chong staff reporter is the byline. It tells you who wrote this article and also the specialty of that author, of your author. And now we have the dateline. It's even simpler. It's basically when the news was being reported. So in this example, we have the date, Thursday, March the 2nd, 2023. It tells you when the article was reported or was written. And also we have the lead. It's the most essential or most And now we have the lead. It's the most essential or crucial or fundamental part of your newspaper article. It's normally one paragraph long. It's like the gist or the summary of your newspaper article. So what are some of the features it might have? Let's take a look. Normally, we'll have 5 W's and 1 H. The who, the what, the where, the when, why, and sometimes how. They're usually at the very beginning and clearly yet consciously state what happened. They are usually at the very beginning of your article, and they clearly yet very briefly or concisely state what happened in your news. So here's an example. A new report reveals the likelihood of wild animal encounters in Canada's provinces and territories. But Parks Canada argues that not all aggressive encounters are attacks. So basically, after reading the lead, you have a very brief understanding of what this article is about. You might not have all the details, but you might understand the full story as to, and also it helps you decide whether this is the topic that you're interested in, that you're interested in or not, whether you want to keep reading or not. And so let's take a deeper look at the lead. Here's a very good example. Halifax only gay man chorus is performing live again after 2 years and after already selling 1,200 tickets. They say it's clear people in HRM are already and eager for more queer entertainment. So in this, like merely one sentence, it has all those elements for the lead. We have the who's in the story, what is happening, when it happened, and also where it happened, and also why it happened. Now let's talk about the body. So it's basically the main section and details about the lead section. We just talked about the lead, right? It's very concise and succinct. And so the body part, it's like the extended details or the extended version of your lead. So for its features, it basically includes as much detail as possible. And it also include evidence, facts, and quotes from people related to the event in the article. It's a single most important information about the event should always go first. It should come first always because you want to grab your reader's attention, or some readers they just have only like seconds for a newspaper article. So you want to make sure that you deliver the most important information right at the very beginning. Here's the example of the body part. As you can see here, we tell more about as you can see here, we tell more about the story, and then you can also add some quotes of what is happening, or from the spokeswoman. And last but not least, we have the tale. Just as it sounds, it's the just as it sounds, it's the tale of your story. So it is the least important information and also as a part to sum up the events. And so basically we add any extra or surrounding information about the event. And we also include links for where to find the extra information about the topic. Normally, we feature a quote from an expert, witness, or spokesman to sum up the story. So in this example, we have the quotes here. I know that I won't last that long, Mito said. Every day it's getting harder and harder to function, harder and harder to maintain the control over myself, harder and harder to present the normal face to the world. For most articles, we have some quotes to finish up your newspaper articles. For most articles, we have some quotes to finish up your story. Now, let's take a mindfulness break in order to stretch our legs and arms and to take ourselves just some minutes away from the study to relax our eyes and our mind. I have a video here. Let's follow through this video. Oops. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so take a yawn and also stretch your legs. Do you know why is it important to take a mindfulness break? Any ideas? Because we need to aim to be a good work. Because we aim to be not only just a good student, but also a healthy individual, and also to improve our health. And health is not just about being physically healthy. We also have our mental health and our spiritual health. So in order to better help us concentrate on our study, we need to learn how to take a break from our arduous or tedious work. Okay, so work hard and rest hard. Now, let's continue. So, writing summaries. In this section, we're going to learn about how to write a brief summary for your newspaper articles. So before we get started, I have a very funny question for you guys. What is a summary? What do you think is a summary for a newspaper article? Do I have any volunteers to share his or her thoughts? Bing bong. So the answer are very simple. It's basically the author's ideas in your own words. And also we give the big and overall picture and a few important details. As you can see here in this picture, sometimes we're very short in our time because in this fast-paced world, everybody's rushing to work, everybody's rushing to live a fulfilling life, and so we might not have that much time for a newspaper article. That's why we need a summary. We just want the main ideas. And so now I want to share with you guys some common errors in writing a summary. Some students, they write up the summary using the author's idea. So some students, they write up the summary not only to just use the author's idea, but also they give some very subjective feelings and thoughts about the newspaper article. That's basically biased. So that would make the newspaper article biased. And also some students, they copy sentences from the newspaper article, or they're making virtually no changes to the summary that I write up. This is called plagiarism. And it's highly prohibited in your academic writing of plagiarism, because whenever you want to quote somebody, because whenever you want to borrow somebody's idea, you have to give them credit, you have to quote, you have to give references. So here's the exercise for common errors. Read the news articles together and let's see if the following summary sample is good or not. So here's the newspaper article. Let's read together. So I want one student to read the first sentence for me. Okay, good job, Gina. Do I have any volunteers to read the second sentence for me? Good job, Jonathan. So for the rest part, I would like the third student to read it for me. Good job, Ali. So let's take a brief look at what is this article about. So we read from the very beginning, the headline, Ontario Public Schools need support for youth mental health after pandemic survey. Principals and vice principals continue to be concerned about the mental health and well-being of our students post-pandemic. Patsy Agard, the president of the Ontario Principals Council, wrote in a statement accompanying the survey's release. While the pandemic has underscored the demand for youth mental health support, the annual survey indicated access to some of those supports has dropped. The survey, covering schools across all of Ontario's publicly funded boards, reported the number of schools with no access to psychologists had nearly doubled over the past decade, up to 28% of elementary schools and 29% of secondary schools. Part of the problem, Agar said, is there are no enough mental health professionals to meet growing demand. She said the government could look to fast-track mental health workers in post-secondary programs and improve school access to community-based mental health staff and resources. In some cases, principals reported they had funding for mental workers, but none were available, People for Education said. So now we have a general understanding of what this article is about. Here's a bad summary sample. For me, the reason why Ontario public schools need support for mental health after pandemic is that students are not mentally strong as they were before. Therefore, I think the education ministry should hire more psychological professionals to solve this issue. Does anyone want to tell me why this is a bad This is a bad summary sample. Yes, exactly. So for a bad summary sample, it includes your own ideas, not the author's idea. For me, this is very subjective. Again, I think. And also for this sentence, students are not as mentally strong as they were before. We could not find any evidence in the newspaper articles we just read. So it's your own ideas, not the newspaper articles. This is highly prohibited. Another bad summary sample. So hundreds of Ontario principals say they need more help to support students' mental health. A survey reported Monday as exposed inequities in access to those supports across the province. Why is it a bad summary sample? Because it copies sentences from the article and making virtually no changes to them or only very small changes. Okay, so this is from the article. As you can see here, I would say their similarity rates reach up to almost 90%. This is called plagiarism, okay? Plagiarism, it's highly prohibited. So how to organize a good summary? Sentence 1, we state the overall main idea of the whole article. And then we explain the first major or important idea in the article. Then we explain the second major or important idea, the third major or important idea, and then last but not least, we explain how the author concluded or finished the article. Here are some of the very useful phrases for you to write up a summary. Let's read it out together. This article is about. The author says that. According to the author. So let's take a look at a good sample summary and then let's learn from this. Let's read together. The article reviews go. Good job, whole class. Why is it a good sample summary? Let's analyze together. So for the first sentence, the article reviews that Ontario public schools need support for youth mental health after pandemic. This is the overall main idea. So it's like the topic sentence or the thesis statement that summarizes the whole article or the whole summary. Then according to an annual survey, because of the pandemic, access to some of the youth mental supports for schools has dropped despite the growth in demand. So this is called the first major idea in a newspaper article. Moreover, as per Patsy Agard, president of the Ontario Principals Council, there are not enough mental health professionals to meet growing demand. So this is the second major idea. Last but not least, the government should find solutions for schools to improve school access to community-based mental health staff and resources. So this is how the author finished up the article. So this is called the summary of the summary, the summary sentence of your summary of the newspaper article. Any questions from you guys? Please feel free to unmute yourself or comment or just type in the chat. Just let me know if you have any questions, okay? Now it's time for our group discussion. I know we only have 3 students in our class, so we're gonna just form one group. Okay, so in our group, we're going to discuss with the peers the different structural features of the following newspaper articles. Please remember to identify with your colleagues as to the headline, byline, dateline, lead, body, and then tail of each newspaper article that you're going to read right now. Okay, so now I'm gonna give you guys 15 minutes to discuss this. Okay, so now I'm gonna give you guys 15 minutes to first read this article and then identify the different parts of this article. Okay, time's up. Are you guys ready to share your answers with the whole class? Cool, let's find out the answers together. This is called the headline, the headline. This is called the byline, the byline. And this is called the lead. This is called the tail. And this whole thing that's circled by the green line is called the body that demonstrates the most details of your news. And then I'm not sure why, but then it's separate. So the date line is here. It was written or it was reported on the 22nd, on the 21st of November, 2022. Woohoo! Now it's time for the Kahoot game. Are you guys ready? Please log into Kahoot. And now we're gonna play the Kahoot game. So the pin code is 432355. And now I'm entering this game. Okay, let's get started. What is the name of the red circled part? Ontario Public Schools need support for youth mental health after pandemic. Perfect. It's the headline. It's the headline. It's the title of your newspaper article. Cool, cool. Next. Good job, Lulu. Good job. What is the name of the orange circled part? By Jordan Olmsted, the Canadian Press. Is it a byline, the headline, the body, or the date line? Cool, everybody's got it correct. It's called byline, the byline of the article. Ooh, next. What is the name of the blue circled part? Monday, February 27th, 2023. It's called Good job. Everybody's got it correct. It's called the date line. It's basically the date as to when the article was reported or written. Good job, Tracy. What is the name of the purple circled part? Read the following news and then select a headline that suits it best. So basically, you need to read the article first. Actually, this is the article that we read together about the mental health after the pandemic. So basically, we need to summarize this article and then provide a title that suits it best. Cool. So the best title for this is the yellow one. The Ontario Public Schools need support for youth mental health after pandemic. Last two questions. What part of the news article do you think the text is? So hundreds of Ontario principals say they need more help to support students' mental health. A survey reported Monday as it exposed inequities in access to those support across the province. Perfect, it's the lead, okay? It's the very succinct, brief lead that tells you what the whole story is about without exposing too much details. Okay. What part of the news article do you think the text is? So it's a quote, as you can see here, the quotation mark. It's a quote. Oh, it's the tail. It's the tail. What should news article look like? So what shape? Oh, it's the inverted pyramid, okay? So we have the headline, byline, dateline, then lead, body, last but not least, we have the tail. Let's see who wins the game. Good job, honey. Oh, Tracy. And we have fantastic, Lulu. Good job, good job. Thank you for all of your participations. And if you guys have any questions regarding to those questions in the Kahoot game, please let me know, okay? Please let me know. Okay, let's continue with our lesson. Okay, let's continue with our lecture. And so this concludes our lesson today. I'm going to assign this homework for you guys, and you need to finish it by next Friday. So you have 1 week to finish up your assignment, okay? So for this assignment, you're going to find a current Canadian news story from a Canadian newspaper and then create a presentation. So basically, your task is to find a newspaper article about Canada from a Canadian newspaper. Here are some of the sources that you can refer to. So the newspaper article must be from within last year, okay? So it has to be recent, not very old, okay? So you need to make a Google slide presentation that includes the headline, byline, and dateline, the lead, the body, the tail, a summary of the article, a connection to this article, as well as a discussion question that you will read to the class and encourage them to discuss. I highly encourage you guys to use the APA Word cited references page, because it's very important for us to always credit the author when you want to borrow their ideas. So basically, you need to create a video recording of your presentation. And in our next class, you're going to share with the whole class your presentation, and then we're going to discuss the question that you design. That concludes our class. Good job, everyone. Thank you guys for coming. And I hope to see you guys next Friday, okay? So in the meanwhile, if you have any questions regarding our lesson, our lecture, our content, or your homework, please feel free to email me. Okay. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.